Oh my God, it's May. How are you coping with the fact that another month is gone?
How is it the 31st? I don't know.
Crazy.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live. Anthony Melchiori should be joining us, but until then we are blessed with Suzanne Bagnera. You know her as Dr. Producer Suzanne here. Suzanne, hope you had a good holiday weekend.
I did. It was really enjoyable. I know we talked about it briefly, but Top Gun Maverick, that's where it's at.
Yeah, it seems to be. And what a great weekend for it to come out over Memorial Day, where we're celebrating people within the military, those that gave their lives to help us live these incredible lives that we have right now.
It was pretty awesome. I've waited for it for 36 years for something to come out. So I would say it definitely did not disappoint. And I had seen that it was on track to be, I think, one of his largest grossing movies.
It was and is now the biggest opening weekend for Tom Cruise ever, plus the biggest opening weekend ever here in the United States for a movie in Memorial Day, not counting inflation, because there are a couple of movies that are a few $1 million behind, but they came out a number of years ago. So you know that those probably made more money initially than blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One other thing I want to say is, hey, folks, I had the chance last week to stay at the Radisson Red in Minneapolis. What a great brand. And if you investors out there are interested in looking at a brand, talk to Phil Hugh and the team over at Radisson, because Radisson Red really did it right. They really stripped it down to the essentials. It looks like something that's priced really well for owners. And me as a customer, well, Suzanne, I had a lot of time, and that has nothing to do with the 45 drinks that they gave me either. All right. So let's get into it. I think Anthony is here. So Suzanne, we'll put you in the back. We'll get Anthony on board. How are you, man? Are you? You look like you're having some internet issues. Yeah, he's looking like we'll bring you back. I don't know.
I know he's kind of really frozen there.
That'll make for some fascinating internet program here. All right. Today we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart, and that's working to help our commitment to elevate women in hospitality. And a couple of months ago, we heard the announcement the American Hotel and Lodging Association, the AHLA Foundation, and the Castell Project announced a merger, with Castell officially becoming part of the AHLA Foundation. What I love about this, Suzanne, is it's really bringing together a couple of great organizations. And I think it's one of those cases where 1 + 1 is going to equal 20, you know?
Without a doubt, this is really exciting news, really for our industry on so many levels. So I'm really thrilled to have our guests here to talk about.
Let's bring on our guest, Peggy Berg, founder and chair of the Castell Project, and Rosanna Maietta, president and CEO of the AHLA Foundation. Ladies, so great to see you today. And as a bonus, I think we got Anthony working here.
All right.
Hi.
See you later, Suzanne. So good to see you.
Sorry about that. I don't know what was happening. I had internet problems.
Yeah, that's a shame. You're coming out of the home office today.
I am, and you and I haven't spoken since last week. That's weird.
Honestly, Anthony, sorry, ladies. I haven't spoken to anyone since last week.
No, I enjoyed
unless they were right in front of my face.
I prefer not talking to you.
Well, there you go. I found my weekend to be empty and totally meaningless without talking to you. But
I played pitch and putt, and I sat by my pool and had a barbecue. So that's what I did.
That's cool. I just sat in my backyard and cooked various things. Rosanna, Peggy, so great to see you. Thank you so much for doing everything to help make these issues more known and making sure that women are elevated in hospitality, something that is so absolutely critical to the future success of the entire hospitality in general. So, Peggy, maybe we'll start with you, the beginning of the story. What made you two think that putting together these organizations would be more meaningful than going at it on your own?
Glenn, you're getting a lot. I'm getting a lot of feedback or some kind of sound. So maybe everybody mutes if you're not talking. Go ahead and mute because I'm getting some weird thing. I think it's coming from Rosanna.
All right. You've just been blamed, Rosanna. Under the bus, you've been thrown. Peggy, take it away.
So we had a great time growing Castell Project and getting the industry to notice the opportunity that's out there and taking advantage of the whole talent pool instead of less than half of the talent pool. Mm-hmm. But we're a very small organization, and what Rosanna's been doing with the foundation brings just a much larger platform, a lot more resources, and really attention from all the leaders in the industry who are at this point very interested in developing their whole talent pool instead of just half.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Peggy, they know that having incredible women are going to help them do better, help them make more money. So why not? Rosanna, how did you see it?
I think that's exactly right. I mean, first off, kudos to Peggy and everything that she's created over the course of the last several years. I mean, she's done so much in such a short amount of time. And when we started talking, it was really what you said, right? To hopefully get to 20 faster, both of our organizations had been working in this same sort of parallel track. We coordinated and we collaborated, and the foundation has been funding Peggy's research projects since the beginning.
Oh, cool.
And so we've always been involved and engaged in each other's work. I think this just allows us to really have a greater sense of community and platform. And also, I think from like if you are a member of Castell, or if you are a member of AHLA's Forward, it helps the person involved to really feel like, okay, they're doing one thing and they're having impact in both. And it's not feeling like well, should I do this or should I do that? If I only have X amount of time, where do I devote my time and attention? So this really allows us to give that proposition to a female who's trying to advance their own career, a better solution.
Right. Anthony?
So, we
Anthony,
think about this in two sides. There's the company side. How do we make the companies able to take advantage of all their talent? And then there's the women's side. How do we strengthen them so that they have the right skills they need to grow? And with Rosanna on the company side, they've done a phenomenal job with the DE&I materials they now have available on the internet. With the leadership training in this area that they've been doing for corporate leaders, it's just extraordinary. And that's backed up by Castell's research, so everybody can benchmark how we're doing as an industry. And then on the ladies' side, on the women's side, we want to have it as sort of a continuum. Like we start with college and we go all the way through senior executive women at each stage, giving them the skills they need to move up.
Right.
What was the moment you knew these organizations were important? And what was your experience growing up in the industry like that you knew that this was critical?
Like when I was offered my very first job, and the job offer was, well, I'll give you the job if you promise not to get pregnant for 2 years.
Oh, my God.
But that was great. I mean, he
What
never.
What was your response? What was your response to that?
Okay.
Well, my external response was, I'll take it.
Yeah.
My internal response was, if that's all it takes, I can run this company.
Right.
And, it kind of worked out that way.
Right.
But how did that make you feel? Was that something you just, unfortunately, you've been part of, you've heard, you've kind of almost been conditioned to hear somebody say something so stupid? Or were you offended?
No, I mean, why would you be offended? I thought, oh, this poor guy, he doesn't get it.
Well, today's day and age, that would be a lawsuit.
Well, sure, but Anthony, I mean, you think about it. I mean, this is how it was for women, and it still is to some degrees. Now they may not say it, but you can certainly bet that they're thinking it, right?
Oh yeah.
So, but I think we've certainly come a long way. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Peggy? I do feel like there is this focus on diversity and inclusion is really also about belonging and making sure not just the women, but people of color and people with disabilities and other communities feel like hospitality is a place that they can grow their careers. And frankly, if we don't do it right, there, you know, it's so easy to find a job these days. I mean, just read the headlines, right? Everybody's resigning. So we need to make this not just a priority, but to follow that up with action and have programs in place that are both educating, but also getting people ahead to that next level, right? Can't just be lip service.
Right. And there's a lot of things in our business that have felt like lip service. This does not. Peggy, please continue.
See, that's what I love about what the AHLA is doing, because it's got this broader look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's very, how do we do this based for the companies so that they can have that strength in how their companies are growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes sense. So, Anthony, believe it or not, when my mom was pregnant with me, she was in a school district in New York City, and you were not allowed to be pregnant and in the classroom, and she was forced on the sidelines. So things have really changed. Obviously not enough. Rosanna, where would you assess we are in terms of women's opportunities in hospitality? And I mean that from the context of, so you could benchmark how we can get to where we need to go.
Sure. Great question. I mean, I feel optimistic, right? So I mean, if you had asked me maybe several years ago, I'd have been like, oh, this is a disaster. But I do legitimately feel optimistic for a lot of reasons. But I do see, particularly coming out of COVID, a greater momentum around making sure that we're focused on the individual and their career journey within the hospitality industry. And also, too, coupled with that is a real recognition that the industry needs to do better at the senior most levels, right? I think if people, you know, anecdotally, we've always said that the property is where we have the most diversity, but once you go up, that's where you're seeing some, right? That's where you're seeing some challenges. We put some research out to figure that out so that we can benchmark where we are. We're hoping to see that research come out this summer. And that'll really, you know, we're bound to, or we made ourselves tied to the fact that we need to set metrics for the industry and have those guideposts. So I think, you know, I'm really excited to see where that research lands. I expect that it'll be what we've all suspected, which is the C-suite is where we have the most challenges. But I will say, the other thing we've heard from a lot of general managers coming out of COVID, right? A lot of general managers are women.
Right.
And women were predominantly struck by COVID, having to deal with childcare or elder care or all of those things. And so, you know, how many of those women have we lost already, right? And how many now are like, okay, general manager, I don't want to do anything more because I can't just take on anymore. And so making sure that we have some support structures for those roles in particular will be important.
But what I'm finding, that with the flex time, with everyone realizing talent above all, right? Talent above all. And because it's hard to find it, especially at the general manager level. I'm finding through talking to some friends that are executives in the hotel industry that happen to be female, that their flex time, their ability to do their job from home a couple of days a week, this is men and women, that it's actually, they're finding it easier post-COVID, or, you know, at the end, or whatever you want to call we're in, that this was, I would never call this a blessing in disguise, but things have changed after COVID, after everybody realizing you can work from home. Even general managers, you know, I have friends that are working from home 2 days a week, and they're able to then commit other hours during the week, maybe even longer hours, because they're getting a lot done at home and they're still being effective.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, right, innovation comes out of necessity, right? And we hadn't had to, as an industry, but not just us, every other industry, we were all in the same boat. Everyone had to figure out, what do we do in lockdown? And we never thought that you could run a hotel 24/7 in that environment, or that some roles were central to being on property. I think you're starting to see with hotels getting busier over this period, right? And bleisure and just more people traveling, even though it's not necessarily business. that hotels are getting back to pre-COVID levels, that mentality that we had about flexibility is kind of changing. But I do think it helped create an awareness that you could change some job functions. You could change some of those traditional hours, say of housekeeping, even cleaning rooms, and when they were happening, and allow for some more of that flexibility. We're in a job shortage right now. We're sort of at crisis levels in terms of employment. So if we don't maintain this level of innovative thinking and flexibility and flex pay and all sorts of other things, and helping to provide childcare or transportation, we're not going to maintain, we're not going to attract or even retain the employees we do have.
You know, I think there's been a flip in perception,
Yes,
particularly at the senior executive level, where when they thought about bringing women into leadership, it used to be, we need to do the right thing for women. And at this point, they're in the, oh boy, we better do the right thing for our company. And
that's right.
that is figuring out how to make ourselves competitive for talent.
Right.
And the most, I think one of the most rewarding things about this is, as companies make themselves competitive for female talent, they're making a much more desirable job environment for male talent. And that's a good thing too.
Yeah, it absolutely is. One of the things that I've noticed is that evolution, what you were talking about how men are thinking. They're realizing now in a real meaningful way that being open, inclusive with women, diversity, and every other group outside that white male category makes us stronger, not just as a society, but as a company as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how you can really convince anyone of anything when it comes down to money. I saw the same thing happen with the sustainability trend. Once you could say you will make more money, then it becomes something that's appealing. My guess, Rosanna, is it doesn't matter how you make the argument, as long as that argument is made and people are treated more equitably and have that opportunity in the workplace. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so. Look, the business case matters, right? Sometimes I have been quoted as saying, "Well, we're still making the business case, really?" You know, I think there's less and less of that need. But you want to be, I mean, whenever you're promoting a new program or a new reason for a training and encouraging the industry to adopt something, you want to have your ducks in a row. Why not? I think that's an important part of the equation. We're not just doing this for, the sake of, kumbaya, let's all,
well, it doesn't make sense to do it for the sake of kumbaya, but it does make sense when you have that business case. But it also makes sense because women happen to be amazing professionals at the same time. So it doesn't really surprise me. So where are we at though right now? Because I think I'd like to believe I am. I know he is. Though these are not the things that we ever thought about. We never put up artificial blockades when working with people. I had amazing female bosses. He works with a lot of great women, prefers to, but I feel like are Anthony and I a little unusual in that sense, or are we really moving towards that industry wide at this point?
I think there's a lot of goodwill out there, and there always has been. But the more we kind of get practiced at it, the more that goodwill turns from goodwill into action.
Right.
And, if you look at the Castell Project statistics, we actually do well up through the director level at corporate.
Mm-hmm.
We have been doing well on the general manager side, particularly on select service hotels.
Yes.
The bigger box, honestly, the higher paid a job is, the more likely it is to go disproportionately to men.
Interesting.
So really big box resort hotels, convention hotels, they're still predominantly those men. GMs are men. As you get SVP and then into the C-suite, particularly in the higher paid fields, it tends to be men. Lower paid fields, a lot more participation from women. So one of the things that I really hope we're able to do is to keep a balance of men and women across all the different fields. I think we need to have more men in HR. I think we need to have more women in finance. And the more balanced we get, I think the more equitable our industry will be in terms of how these jobs are compensated and the opportunities that are offered and the results that we get.
You know, you're always going to have open-minded people and closed-minded people. You're always going to have it. Hopefully we have a lot more open-minded people in the business now than we had back when I started in business. If you would take a young female today and compare them to the young female when you guys were coming up in the industry, is there a difference? Is there a difference with attitude? Is there a difference with how they show up? I'm fascinated with that. So why don't you go give me your experience or your opinion?
I would say absolutely. I think millennials, Gen Z, they're much more open to talking about these things, to complaining when they see things that aren't right or are unfair or discriminatory.
Right.
I think they're also more open to talking about things like salary, right? They're sharing their salaries and titles and workload and talking about it. And I think that will eventually force employers even to really think about sort of salary transparency as you get higher up the ranks, because they're already doing it amongst themselves. And I think that's a good thing. I think a lot of, not a lot, but many of the changes that we've seen already, just even for more flexibility or remote work or the ability to, change jobs, is driven a lot by, I think, the younger generation who they want things a lot faster. They're not going to wait 5 years for their first promotion. We hear it from the hospitality schools and the deans who say, you've got a 4-year student who graduates, they're not taking an hourly job, but they want a job that is well paid right out of the gate. And now you might say, well, that's not realistic. It doesn't make sense. But those are the expectations that they're coming into the industry with. And so if we don't adapt to that, we're going to lose that audience, right? And then who's working for you?
And I think taking somebody, and Peggy, I'd like you to answer that question as well, but I think taking somebody out of school and sink or swim and letting them, let them take that big challenge. I know I was a general manager at 29 and I only have front office experience. And I was a supervisor right out of the Air Force, and I never really was a line employee. And, I swam, but I was given responsibility I shouldn't have been given, but I wanted it that bad. So there is opportunities. You just have to want it bad. And I'm all for letting somebody get that supervisory job right outside of college, but they have to, they have to work for it. So Peggy, what is your perspective?
I think they're much more sophisticated than we were, and much, much better trained. I mean, they're just a delight to talk to and a delight to work with.
And they also had amazing women like you who were there first so they could see how it's done, They
have some different drivers, that's for sure. I have 2 kids. My kids are both boys. And all that posse of young men, they're not interested in having super traditional roles either. You say to them, well, your wife is going to stay at home, you're going to support her, and you go to work all the time, and no, you get to see your kids maybe to play soccer on Saturday mornings.
Yep.
They don't want that deal. They're not going to accept that. They want to be involved. They want to be part of their families, and they want a job that lets them have a personal life as well as a business life, and they will prioritize that.
That's fascinating. So I've been sitting here thinking of some questions to ask you. And one of the things that I was thinking was, it seems still in modern society that childbearing issue still falls predominantly on the female of the household. There seems to be an indelible connection between kids and moms. I see it here in my house. It's a little bit different than kids and dads. But I love what you're saying, Peggy, is that men want to get much more involved now at that home level, which then gives women more opportunity and less constraints to be able to put in those hours they need to find success, to learn what they have to, and be noticed. Is that kind of how you're seeing the whole issue?
I think so. I mean, obviously women are going to have children, and that's a really good thing, but it's not a life-ending experience. I mean, you have children and then you still have a life and you're still productive. And being part of the business world, I truly believe, makes you a better mom.
Yeah.
being a mom, I truly believe makes you a better manager of people and a better businesswoman. So
Right.
I see those two things as being really mutually reinforcing.
But do you think nowadays the guilt is less? Because one of the things, growing up is women always felt this guilt that if I'm away from home, if I'm traveling, if I'm working late, I feel guilty. I know a lot of men. I've never heard a man say, well, I feel guilty because I'm working late. I mean, I've heard people say I've been working on the road for 3-4 weeks and I have to get home to see my kids. But very rarely you hear that from men. From women, there's always this guilt factor.
Sure. Among millennials, I think you might start finding something different.
They're like, screw the kids.
No.
Well,
but I think you're right, Peggy. I mean, I think it's generational too. I mean, we grew up, myself included, with this notion that you had to have balance, right? Whoever came up with the balance is, I blame that person endlessly because you figure out how to make it work, but a balance implies that it's going to be equal. And it's never equal, right? That's just the nature of work. And I think that we carry that sense of guilt. And I think that's an issue that women have to get over.
Well, Jack Welch said in his book, he said, your work-life balance isn't my problem. It's your decision. And it was really, I give it to everybody I worked at Nickelodeon when I ran Nickelodeon. I gave them the book and I circled the chapter and I said, because I was walking around with guilt. Because people, when I take over businesses, I work hard and people work hard around me to turn it around because they're usually turnaround opportunities. And when I read that chapter, it was like, your work-life balance isn't my problem. Meaning, if I give you a report that has to be done on Monday morning and you miss a softball game on Saturday and Sunday, that's not my problem. You don't know how to manage. Now, if I heard you missed a softball game or a soccer game or whatever you missed for your daughter or your son, I'd probably want to fire you. You should not miss that. But you should not also miss my report. So there's a couple of things you can do. One, say, do I have to have it Monday? Can I have it Tuesday? The answer is probably yes. Mm-hmm. You have to maybe come in Sunday night and work at your desk after you do what you have to do for your children. To me, my work-life balance has always been my responsibility. It's not been my boss's responsibility. But there's a lot of people, male or female, that put the guilt on their business or put the guilt on their boss that, it's because of them, I don't have a work-life balance. It's your decision. And I love that you said that, Rosanna.
But I will say, Anthony, I do think it's a two-way street now, right? Like now it is as a manager of people, it is my responsibility to ensure that my team has work-life balance, right? You're right. They need to manage things, but I think it's a joint effort. Like I want to know what they've got going on at home or at work so that we can talk together about deadlines being met and on time. Because if I don't do that, then it does feel like my business, my work, they don't care about me. I'm in this alone. And I think that speaks to this sense of belonging that we're all trying to create a little bit more, that, you've got a team and support system.
Mm-hmm. That makes a whole lot of sense. Because for me, if I'm just looking at it, how I want to balance my life, June is a little bit more complicated. I've got proms, I've got 2 high school graduations for my sons, all of that. But once they're off to college in September, unless I'm on a business trip, I got all the time in the world. I'm happy to, put it in there. So
Peggy, we keep cutting you off. I apologize. Go ahead. I did it and then everybody else did. Sorry about that.
We live in this incredibly rich place right now. So we get to do jobs that we like. Right. I know you guys like what you do. I know you're excited about it. You could probably do it 24 hours a day, except you need to sleep.
Yeah.
We live in this society where there's fun stuff to do. We could spend 24 hours a day doing special things for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we have our families and we have our civic and social things going, and each of those could be 24 hours a day. So whatever you like to spend your time doing, it's not just a work-life balance. It's that we have this overwhelming richness of opportunity and we get to choose. And I don't want to see that being like locked into something that's totally limited. You got to be work, you got to be life. It's got to be balance all the time. It's got to be static. It doesn't. It's an incredibly rich landscape, and we each build what we want out of that. And let's be glad we've got that richness.
Yeah. And, I always say my job is I want to be happy. And so you choose those moments based on to me, based on my happiness. But I just want to go, Rosanna, when I said what I said, what I meant was exactly what you said as far as having conversation. So if I ask you for a report, just say, hey, I can't get the report. Can I do it on Tuesday? No problem. So absolutely, it is my responsibility if I'm the manager of a hotel or a business to have that openness. Yeah. But a lot of people, because you're the boss, they're afraid to have that conversation. So if you're afraid to have that conversation, I'm probably not doing my job because you don't feel comfortable with me. And two, even when I do make you feel comfortable, you're still a little concerned. So my thing has always been, since I've read that book, is to let everybody know your number one priority is your happiness. However that works, I'm going to help you do that. But at the end of the day, we have a business to run, and we have to do that together. But I would be very upset if people started missing family occasions because they had a report to do. But again, it comes down to communication.
Well, and it also comes down to, what are you feeling guilty about? Are you feeling guilty because you didn't pick up the dry cleaning, or because you didn't vacuum the house? Well, you can hire somebody to do those things and prioritize the time that you have to spend on really quality time with your kids or with your husband or whatever it might be. So we also individually, because of the kind of resources we have available, if we're really thinking about what it is that we're feeling guilty about, a whole lot of that stuff's pretty low value, and we can offload it.
I love that you said that. And by the way, Glenn is available for cleaning houses, and I pick up dry cleaning. And
I am not.
Okay. I actually love picking up my dry cleaning. I don't know why.
I mean, I think you said the thing that I think is really critical, right? It's that environment. Do your employees feel like the environment allows them to either speak up or to feel that they're supported? And I think that that's where you're seeing a change now post-COVID. Those environments are starting to change. Maybe people who had an attitude of, outside of work, it's not my priority. They're seeing that they need to create that. I mean, one of the trainings that we do is about inclusive leadership. And some of that is creating that environment where people feel that they are able to speak up or speak out or, share, whether it's concerns or even, the positive things, but creating that environment that's different than I think what we saw even, 5 years ago.
Yeah, so, and I think if I can, Glenn, real quick, go ahead, please. I think when you're saying speaking up, when you're saying, just tell people how you feel, you're really going back to authenticity, right? Mm-hmm. If you're feeling, one of the things we've all been in that position where we're afraid to ask for a raise, or we're afraid to ask for a promotion, or we're afraid to ask for a day off, or hey, can I get cross-trained? We're afraid. And like you said, why are we afraid? If you're being authentic and you say to yourself, you immediately say, I'm not being authentic. And then all of a sudden you say those words in a polite way, 99.9% of the time, you're going to get what you want. Mm-hmm. 99.9% of the time, you're going to get what you want. You may not get it tomorrow. You may not get it next day, but they're going to see you, they're going to hear you. One of the things that I try to train or teach or show people is, once you get it out of your mouth, as long as it comes out of your mouth in a proper way and in the right environment, you're probably going to win. It's when you hold it in, because when you hold it in, then you go to lunch, then you come back from lunch and you're still angry, and then something else pisses you off and you're still angry. And all you had to do is you ask your boss for Friday afternoon off. And that's all you had to do. And if he said no, if he didn't give you a good reason, that's probably not a boss you want to work for, because that's the fourth or fifth time you're going to get really angry. Yeah. So to me, authenticity, not being authentic just for the sake of speaking your mind, but being true to your heart. One of the things, I don't know if I was born with it, I've always been able, 90% of the time, I would say, to really tell people how I feel. And that has been sometimes my detriment, but most of the time it's been successful. And I'd imagine, Peggy, just hearing you talk for a few minutes, you don't mince words with people.
No, I've given that up.
Smart move. All right, what I'd talk to you a little bit more about the tactics that you're taking to help to empower women in hospitality. How are you looking at it maybe differently, if differently at all, from the property level to that executive corporate level? Because we talk a lot about the disconnect between people at the property level not even thinking about the corporate level and vice versa. So who wants to grab that one?
Well,
Rosanna?
maybe I'll start from a big picture,
Yep.
but then Peggy can talk about
Beautiful. Thank
build
you.
and elevate. I mean, I think from the broader picture, both AHLA Foundation and AHLA, I mean, one of our core platforms is Forward, of course, and I think we've grown that over the last couple of years. It started as an event, but now it's really become more of a movement with a lot of opportunities for people to engage. But we're really seeing that as a vehicle for women to plug in, to learn about different things. We offer workshops on a variety of things, including, you know, your own financial literacy, right? How to ask for a raise or bonus, what to ask for beyond just the monetary, you know, compensation these days is so rich. And so you can, you know, but unless you know what to ask for, how do you figure that out? So providing them that insight, providing, you know, I shouldn't say public relations training, but sort of communications training, presentation training. How do you prepare? What goes into a good presentation? Those types of things. But in addition, I think just the platform itself is really just about elevating women from all sorts of backgrounds. We had a panel on, you know, power general managers. We had another panel on, you know, our view from the top from a female perspective, and then making sure that isn't just restricted to Forward, but as you go to NYU or Lodging Conference or Alice, that we're working with planners and organizers to make sure that they're expanding who they have on stage in those other environments as well. And then finally, from a foundation perspective, making sure that we launched a leadership academy that's focused on the C-suite around inclusive leadership training. It's a 6-month training. We had a first group of 60 C-suite executives from all backgrounds. It was such a diverse and rich group that came together to really have these hard conversations. How do we make our industry more inclusive? How do you expand that within your own companies? Because, you know, for as much as we want to do together, and the merger, you know, the goal of the merger is to do more faster, this isn't something that changes overnight, right? You have to make sure that, you know, there is a role for a qualified woman or an African American to take, and that those people who take those roles are set up for success and have those skills that they need in that support system. And then through Peggy's program, she's reaching more of the senior women and mid-level, but I'll let you speak to that, Peggy.
So we go out to colleges, and what we try to do at colleges is show them women who look like them. So we bring white women and Black women and Hispanic women and talk to students about what we actually do. And because it's all built around stories, the students can understand it. It makes sense to them. And they get to see actually, okay, they did it, maybe I can do it too. Right. And that's been wonderful, because all the way up to CEOs, remarkable collection of women share with these college students. Then at Forward, women have the opportunity to connect with other women. So they both get to see inspirational women, and they get to build relationships with women that they wouldn't otherwise meet. So they have that resource network through Forward. And then Build and Elevate. Build is for women who are at the director level, new VP level, select service GMs, and they come to us to build skills specifically in areas where women learn better with women. So they're not trying to reinvent the wheel wherever they are. And that accelerates their growth. And then Elevates for women who are ready to set their eyes on the C-suite and figure out how to get there. And again, it's learning with other women. So you have that posse, you have that connection, and you're learning skills specifically for women. So it's just been terrific. I mean, I've learned so much going through these programs and building these programs and getting to know the women. It's been extraordinary, and it's worked.
Just to see the smile on your face when you say that, I'd love to be in the room just to hear and listen to what's going on. What do you think is the one thing that going from a director to the C-suite or getting to that next level, even CEO, what is it that holds people back? You know, from your perspective, it could be females, you know, but like, what do you think is the thing that holds them back outside of people not giving them an opportunity? But when they get in a position where they should be given an opportunity, what sometimes holds them back from pushing and taking that next step?
So we kind of package a whole collection of things together and call it executive presence.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the woman, it's a little bit different strength building. So it might be building self-esteem, it might be building presentation skills, it might be learning how to take a seat at the table. It might be really image related. It might have to do with what we call the productivity trap, where women get stuck in this thing where they're taking on more and more and more and more, but it's all at the same level, and they're never getting compensated and never getting elevated because they're stuck with just saying yes instead of learning to delegate. So that whole package of executive presence, some piece of it affects almost all of us. Some piece of it affects a lot of men too. But for women, if you can be in a place where you learn from other women or from people who are skilled in these particular things, it helps, because men have go-bys all around them in the other men who've come just before them. And women are, in many organizations, still building it from scratch. So that executive presence thing is the one thing that helps, I think, the most.
That's interesting, because you might have somebody that has that confidence to get there, but doesn't necessarily have refined their wardrobe or some of the way they interact with people in order to get to that next level.
How to build relationships with advocates.
Right.
How to be an advocate. It's really quite a package.
And that's a good point, because as much as we you know, people say, well, presentation shouldn't matter. Presentation matters. If you're going to be around executives and the way you show up and the way your suit looks or the way you present yourself, it matters, because people immediately perceive you as you care. If you care about your presentation, how you run your business, and a lot of times that translates.
Well, and let's not forget that still, you know, in today's day and age, there are a lot of places where a woman is still the only woman at the table. Right. And so that is, you know, you have to build up sort of the strength and the courage to do that every day and sort of put that aside and not pay attention to that. But for some women, that can be challenging and still really intimidating.
Yeah, I can imagine. Sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, we've talked about this before in the show, where, you know, a lot of women, my daughters say, I'm sorry, and they didn't do anything wrong. Right. And like, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry. I was like, what are you sorry for? You didn't do anything wrong. One of my daughters does that all the time. Do you guys find that when you're helping executive women?
That's so much in that executive presence package, because you are not sorry. You're not a sorry being. You're not a sorry human. You're terrific.
Yeah.
Own it.
Absolutely. I love it. Kyle's got one question that's a little antithetical to where I think we're headed. You believe because larger hospitality companies making raises standardized, so those kinds of conversations can't happen until a promotion comes about, is actually create wage inequality? My guess is no, but how do you see it? Rosanna?
I mean, I don't think so. I think it is important for an employee to know that there is a raise structure, that there's transparency about that. How do you get a raise? I think making sure that you communicate about that is more important. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you're starting to see in Europe, a lot of countries are really going towards these very public bands of salaries, right? So that people within certain titles know what to expect. I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see that more and more here again, because I think millennials are driving that.
I would like to see that. Now, to equate it to my wife, she's in a school district, and the way that the union works and all of that, I'm pretty sure this is national. She's at a certain step or level, whatever you call it, and she knows I will make it to XYZ level and make XYZ amount of money. And if I take these types of courses and I do these things, then I could get to this particular level. So it's all really clear, takes out a lot of that guesswork. Peggy, I'd like to see some of that guesswork taken out, because one of the challenges I had is, how do you get to that next level? What are the actual expectations? And if you're not strong enough, and I certainly wasn't when I was younger, to say, what do I need to do to get that raise? What do I need to do to get to that next promotion? Something like that could be very helpful for people. How do you see it?
You know, there's some really interesting research out there about transparency and pay. And it turns out that if you're in a situation where there is transparency about pay, everybody knows what everybody else makes. There's sort of a belief here that, well, that'll make people jealous. It'll make people want to leave. But what actually happens is that people who leave because they're disgruntled about pay are almost always wrong. Like, they think they're not getting paid fairly because they have no information. And they get, as Anthony was saying before, it preys on their mind. They get angrier and angrier and angrier. They finally leave, and they're frequently wrong. It's just that there's not sufficient transparency. People who know what they do and are realistic about themselves and know what other people do and know what each other gets paid, frequently it's pretty equitable. So that's what you want. You want it to be as equitable as possible. And the more transparent it is, the odds are the more equitable it's going to be.
Right. And when I was a GM in the city, I would be concerned if everybody knew what I made, because I would feel, that I was making a lot more money than a lot of people. With that said, you have the opportunity to continue to grow, to make the salary that I was making. And if they really wanted to get upset, they just look at the union banquet waiters, and they made more money than all the people in the hotel, including the general manager.
Too funny. All right, we're nearly out of time right now. Any final thoughts before we get into how you could contact the foundation, Rosanna?
Well, first of all, Glenn, thank you for giving us this platform to talk about it. I do think that there is certainly a lot of momentum in the industry. We need to keep that pressure on, right? It's always great when people are talking about it, but it needs to translate to action. So I think that's that next most important step. And as we continue to sort of lay some benchmarks and metrics, we're going to help keep the industry accountable, because it matters.
Beautiful. Peggy?
There's so much going on now within the foundation and actually around the industry. So whatever we can do to help, we're here. We want to see women grow up in companies, both for women and the companies. So keep in touch.
Awesome. And of course, check it out at ahlafoundation.org. Anything that, any particular program that you want to make sure that people are aware of right now?
Well, I would say we're signing up for Build and Elevate in November, right, Peggy? So /Build or Elevate, and you can sign up. We'd love to have, we have only small amounts of slots available, about 30 for each of those programs. So
what are these programs specifically for folks that aren't aware of them?
So Build is the program for women who are at that director, new VP, select service GM, and everyone who comes in to either Build or Elevate has a champion. So if you have a woman on your team who you think has a great runway, great potential, you nominate them, they apply, obviously fees apply.
Yep.
And then they get to come and have this training. And then same thing for Elevate at that next level up. So be a champion or apply yourself, and we would love to work with you.
Awesome. Rosanna, Peggy, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to being able to talk to you more on the road. Maybe Anthony and I can come down to the next time you do one of those forward conferences.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to have you.
Gotta come. You'll love it.
Yes, make sure you invite us though.
I will. We will.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
That was awesome. I really love talking with them.
Absolutely. It was amazing and important work. And, I think it's important that, listen, soon, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, you're going to have more and more women. So they're not going to feel as isolated when they're walking into the C-suite. And hopefully a lot of those chauvinistic men will retire.
I think that they will, but sadly, there's always new ones coming along. We gotta train them right, get them out of that.
Looking cute with your black shirt on.
Hey, thanks very much. I'm worried about the shadows over here, though.
No, they're fine. Button to button, then you won't have the shadows.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, everybody. If you want to see what we're talking about, make sure that you watch us on video. You can find that on Anthony's Facebook fan page, either of our respective LinkedIn pages, novacancynews.com. Find us on YouTube. Find us on Facebook. And if you're watching us and you want to hear us, well, make sure you get the podcast version. Listen on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your shows. Well, that's where we are. Any final thoughts, friend?
What did you cook yesterday on your barbecue?
Yesterday, I did quick ribs. They only took 4.5, 5 hours. I usually do these 9, 12-hour type ribs. I did that, but I also made peri-peri chicken the day before, which was absolutely fantastic. So a West African type of dish. Beautiful on the barbecue. Reach out to me for that.
Wow. I sauteed onions for my steak and I felt like an executive chef.
And I haven't had a steak at home in a while. I got to do that.
I just, last time my wife said, what do you want? And I said, I don't know. I was going to throw a steak on the barbecue. And she got me steak. I threw it on the barbecue. I got some onions, threw it on there. And,
nice.
And you know what? I cooked it for 3 minutes on each side. And I realized I needed to do 2 minutes on each side.
Yeah.
The time I started eating it, it was already too dry.
Yeah, it was probably less than an inch thick. So you got to go a little bit less on that timing. Now, I will say the St. Louis ribs I had were half price, only about $9 a rack. It was freaking amazing. So I'm thinking of running back to the Stop and Shop today and throwing some in my freezer.
I think you should do that.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, we will see you tomorrow. But until then, you've got one life. So blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
See you all tomorrow.